even if the business didn't like benefit from it, just the feeling of all that was enough. I didn't know what was going to happen after. So just that opportunity alone was insane.
Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go. Have you ever hired somebody and you know within the first week, it's just not going to work out? That is the worst feeling ever. Not because they're a bad person, but because something just didn't align, whether it's expectations, communication, the fit. And by that point, you've already invested the time and the training and the money into this person, and then you feel like you're starting back at square one. I have watched it happen to great employers over and over again. So we put together a free guide that covers the biggest hiring mistakes that we see in agriculture and Western industries and how to avoid them. Things like writing vague job descriptions, skipping onboarding, and not really defining what success in a role actually looks like. It's short, it's practical, it just might save you from your next headache, and it's absolutely free to download. So I will drop the link in the show notes so that you can easily go find it and get that delivered right to your inbox, because hiring the first time is always cheaper than having to do it again. And we are back with a brand new episode of Leaders of the West. Today, you guys, we are sitting down with Shannon Lowery, better known as Mud Lowery. And later in the show, you're going to hear how the name Mud Lowery came to be. But he is the founder and the self-taught artist behind Mud Lowery, which is a jewelry brand that really blends Western heritage and modern design. He is a very proud member of the Lumbee Native American tribe of North Carolina. He began his career in the Western industry after he graduated from the University of Florida, and then he moved from Florida to Texas, specifically to Fort Worth, in 2013, which is where he still lives today with his stunningly beautiful wife, Lauren, and then their two children, Major and Bayou. I have known Shannon for a number of years now, honestly, probably close to a decade, and I have seen his jewelry business come full circle from what truly began as a hobby in 2015 and has now evolved into not only a thriving brand, but he has collaborations with the 4-6's Ranch. He has created custom designs for superstars like Carrie Underwood, Lainey Wilson, Miranda Lambert, Blanco Brown, and a number of other celebrities as well. And I am really looking forward to today's conversation. So let's have it for the one, the only Shannon Lowery. Okay, I am so excited to have you on the show today. We are going to kick things right off. I want you to tell us a little bit about your life growing up in Florida, obviously being a member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, and then what brought you to Texas. As I mentioned, you grew up in Florida, you went to the University of Florida, and then what made you decide to move to the Lone Star State?
I grew up in Florida, went to University of Florida, and then when I graduated, I moved to Texas because I wanted to start roping again, and that was like 2013, and I've been here ever since.
So when you went to college, what is it that you studied? Did you high school rodeo in Florida? Is that your connection to the industry? Give us the details.
I didn't hit high school rodeo. We weren't like part of that organization, but I did rope, but just not part of our high school rodeo. But my connection to the Western industry is whenever I was like, it was before I was old enough to drive. So I might have been like 14. There was a lady who ended up becoming like my second mom. She had a Western store that my mom actually shopped at when she was a little kid. And my mom boarded her horses at their stables when she was like a little girl, and then babysat her kids as they grew up. And then so as we grew up, we shopped at that Western store. And then when we started roping and stuff, she was like, "Hey, you should come and work for me at my trailer." I was like 14. And I was like, "Of course, I would love to go with you everywhere." Because she like cussed all the time, and she was hilarious. I was like, "Oh, you're exactly you're
The kind of
exactly what
lady I
I'm
want to hang out
looking.
with.
You're exactly the mom that I'm looking for, even though I already have a good mom." But I mean, at first it was like case by case. She was like, "I have a junior rodeo in North Florida this weekend. You want to come with me? We leave Friday." And I'd be like, "Hey, yeah, that sounds awesome." And I just thought it would never happen again. But then I ended up working for her until I moved to Texas in 2013.
So then when you moved to Texas in 2013, which is now 13 years ago, what did life look like at that time? Because you were not designing jewelry.
No, I wasn't. So I went to college to become a dentist, right? And then I didn't do that. And then I was like, all right, I don't want to be staring in people's mouths all day. Uh, I did not go to dental school. So I did everything up until you take the DAT. And then I'd worked at a dentist's office and I was like, oh, I cannot do this. This is making me sick to my stomach. And then I was like, all right, maybe I could be a PA. So then I started I started working as a scribe at the hospital. And then I was like, oh, I can't do this either. So then I was like, I don't know. I just have to graduate. I just got to get out of here. So then I moved to Fort Worth and was like, actually I moved to Weatherford. And I was like, I'm just going to work in the Western industry because I at least know that part and I'll figure out what I want to do. But they have a Lockheed Martin here and I also have Lockheed Martin back at home. So my backup plan was like, I'll just work at Lockheed Martin. And I always kind of had that in the back of my mind. But for the longest time, I worked in the Western industry because that's all I really knew. And I just wanted a rope, which it didn't end up being financially stable. So that's where the jewelry came in. I was like, I need to learn how to make something that I can supplement my income with so I can continue to rope and do whatever else.
And what was it that drew you to jewelry? Were there other things that you had tried and didn't necessarily love? Like, what led you to pick up that specific craft?
I think that I always thought that turquoise jewelry was really cool because my grandma would always go to like our homecomings and powwows in North Carolina and would bring home jewelry to my cousins and sister. And so I always thought the jewelry was cool, but I never thought that I would want to make it. But then whenever I moved to Texas, people were really starting to buy like squash blossoms and turquoise jewelry, and people in the stockyard started to invest in like people my age, and maybe other generations were already doing it, but people my age, like that were doing things that I was paying attention to, were starting to invest in turquoise jewelry. And I'd always been artistic. Like I was tooling leather belts and like wallets and cell phone cases at the time, which I didn't enjoy, but it did pay bills. So I just stuck with it. But in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I was able to learn how to do that. I know silver smithing will be harder, but maybe I can teach myself. So, and there seems to be some sort of demand. People are buying it a lot right now. So if I can teach myself, maybe somebody will want to buy some from me. And then that was like 2015. I bought some silver and I had some turquoise stones from someone that I bought just randomly in the stockyards and taught myself how to make jewelry.
So you are self-taught.
Yeah.
Wow. That is
I
incredible.
think about like people that are being self-taught right now. I don't know if you paid attention to like any of the articles or posts about silver prices, but they've almost tripled from what they were at this time last year. I couldn't imagine teaching myself with these silver prices because I went through so much silver when I was learning, like just melting pieces on accident because you don't really know how to control your flame and things like that. So looking at people that are learning now, I'm like, ooh, y'all must be rich. You must have a trust fund.
Yeah, no, it is because the cost of silver has, as you had mentioned, it has tripled at the time that we're recording over the past year. So obviously, by the time that people listen to this, I mean, it could even be higher than that. It kind of looks like it probably will be. A couple of questions for you. What is the reason behind silver's just incredible demand right now? Because this is unprecedented. Silver has reached the highest. A couple of months ago, it had reached the highest point ever. Obviously, it is higher now than it was then. So it has continued to climb.
Yeah. Well, first off, you're asking the wrong person because I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I do not know, Jesse. Yeah, I don't think I'm like a subject matter expert in so many things. But anyway, for silver, I have heard that AI data centers use silver. And maybe that's driving up the demand. And then I've heard that it has to do with tariffs. I don't know. I have no idea. But whatever it is, I needed to stop.
Yeah, so I've heard the same things as far as the usage in data centers and then obviously tariffs and just anything. I feel like right now prices for everything are a little bit volatile. Last year at this time, it was eggs. Now this time this year, it's silver. January 2027, who knows what it's going to
Oh no.
be? Like, let's take our bets.
Have you guys seen this? I feel like it's politically driven, maybe, and I don't know. But have y'all seen it impacting your company, like the beef industry?
So the beef industry right now has our prices are also at the highest at which they have ever been when it comes to producers selling their products. So it's been nice. We haven't seen this since around 2012. So now for about 14 years, which is much needed for our sector of the industry. But unfortunately, that then puts a big crunch on people who are in those next step processes, right? So the feeder, packer, obviously, all of those prices need to rise. And so, unfortunately, their margins become tighter and tighter. Obviously, that's why we're seeing prices so high at the grocery store. So, yeah, very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, it makes sense though. I always wonder if like other industries are seeing what we're seeing, and I don't think I've never thought about prices changing very much for my supplies, but this is the first time I've been like, oh crap, this is crazy. Because then, normally for like the last few years when I would quote something, my prices are changing based on how I know how to make jewelry. And I'm spending a lot more time on like a ring that I would have 3 years ago, just based on I might be using a heavier silver or the detail that I put into a ring may take longer. So my price is going to go up there, but I've never changed my prices based on the materials,
Right.
the cost of materials going up. So this is the first time I've had to factor that, and it feels very like I have like a lot of like guilt towards it. So it's just something weird to, I guess, navigate for right now. Hopefully, it's not going to last forever.
No. So I guess one of the questions that I have thought, because I am seeing this from the perspective of somebody who is buying jewelry, the cost of the goods for you, the jewelry artisan, is increasing. So the price that I am going to have to then pay for the jewelry that I'm buying is going to come at a higher cost. Like that is supply demand. That's how markets work. That being said, I am a silver girl till the day that I die. I've never necessarily loved any other metal, but are silver smiths considering working in other metals for the time being, just knowing that the price of silver is so high?
Just based on like the industry and there just being like a huge issue with like copying each other right now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually follow a ton of accounts because I don't want to be like ever blamed for that. But I have like a couple of friends that have talked about, oh, I want to learn how to use brass or I want to learn how to use, I don't know, copper. But if you don't treat these metals the right way, they can tarnish really bad. And then I think a lot of your business will be spent around how do I work with these materials, and your customers are going to end up being unhappy. So I'm sure people are thinking about it. I haven't got to that point yet because I haven't had to place a huge order since the prices have gone up so much, thankfully. I also haven't really changed my prices quite yet because I'm still using silver from like back in November that I bought. And I know that that's probably not the smartest, but I think when I place my next order, the jewelry I make with that silver, my prices will go up. But it hasn't caused me to want to work with other metals just because I know when I first started out, I would use like brass to practice with, and I would leave it out in like an open space and it would be tarnished, because I maybe wasn't soldering it correctly and things like that. I just don't want to go
The
back to that. I
learning
feel like
curve that's associated with
yeah,
having to go work in a new metal. No, that makes sense.
yeah. And maybe if I had more time, but like I work a full-time job too, Jesse. So if I had the time for learning a new material, then I probably would do it. But running on a very, very thin schedule.
So I know that your Native American heritage plays obviously a huge role in not only your life, but in your work as well. Can you share just kind of like what that means and how that shows up in what you create?
So the Native American tribes are it's really special and interesting how they all have their own style and culture. But like for our tribe or even tribes on the East Coast, they wear much different jewelry
Mm-hmm.
than tribes in like Arizona. But I think that just the love of turquoise is what I've gotten from our tribe and like from my grandmother, not necessarily like designs. There's a lot of beadwork in the Lumbee tribe, and I'm not a beader, so it's not something I've ever gotten into. But just the appreciation for sterling silver and turquoise, I feel like I've uppulled. And then I think in terms of the culture from our tribe, which has nothing to do with making jewelry, but like we have tons of our family that's in farming, and just like the pride that they take up until like their very last day on earth, they've farmed and have been very taking a lot of pride in their work. and they're very like humble, selfless people. Maybe it's not the whole Lumbee tribe, but at least the Lumbees I'm related to in our tribe. You can tell that they take their customers very seriously and appreciate their business. And so I know that's not related to the designs of my jewelry, but I try to model the way I run my business after what I've learned from them, like how I've watched them farm my whole life.
No, that absolutely, I mean, that is the foundation of it doesn't necessarily have to be, how we take the designs, or whatever it is. It's the foundation of who we are, not only in our business, but as people. And you are absolutely somebody who believes in quality and hard work and being a man of your word. And that is very evident, obviously, not only in who you are as a person, but who you are as a businessman and as a designer as well.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be. I think that obviously, I mean, I've made tons of mistakes since owning a business. I know, like, when I think about those values that my uncles have, with how they farm and their honesty, like, I'll do pre order sometimes and not ship when I say I'm going to ship. And when I tell you that it's making me lose hair anytime that this happens, but I may have something that is like a month late or 2 months late. And it's like, it just gives you the most horrible feeling in the world, but it just makes you strive to be a better business. But there are times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I am not doing a good job here.
That is something for everybody, though, that we all have those situations at one time or another. Anytime I have dealt with those, one of two things, right? One, it makes me really want to give people grace because I am so very thankful for the people who have given me grace. Number two, I want to build a system so that I do not put myself in this situation ever again. So I feel like those are two, even those what we would consider as mistakes, have personally taught us very valuable lessons that otherwise we maybe wouldn't have been as aware of.
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously very hard things to learn, but you're right. They're also, it's giving us tools to not make those mistakes anymore. And then also for like your next pre-orders or maybe decide not to do pre-orders anymore. I think it's only going to help you get better. So yeah, I completely agree.
If you have been applying for jobs in any kind of industry, but especially agriculture or Western industry, and you have not been hearing back, this is for you. On April 22nd, we are hosting a free online workshop called How to Get Hired in the Ag and Western Industries, and I want to see you there. We are going to talk about what your resume is actually communicating to hiring managers, what they are paying attention to in interviews, and where most candidates are losing that opportunity without even realizing it. This is not fluff, you guys. I would hope that you know that from me. This is literally the real stuff that changes outcomes. This comes from years of experience and conversations with employers and hundreds upon hundreds of resumes that we have seen. It is free. It is online. And you are going to walk away with knowing exactly what needs to change so that you can land your next opportunity in any industry, but especially in this industry. So grab your spot for this workshop. The link is in the show notes. April 22nd, How to Get Hired in the Ag and Western Industries. And I can't wait to see you guys there. So your name is Shannon, but your business is Mud Lowery. I feel like most people call you Mud. Where did the name Mud come from?
Whenever I was at University of Florida, the admissions board, they would like look at your Facebook and stuff. And I had like made a joke or got like a nickname or something. And so I changed my Facebook to Mud. And for like, I don't know how many years before I moved to Texas. But anyway, when I moved to Texas, it was still Mud Lowery. And no one in Florida ever called me Mud Lowery. That was just my name on Facebook and Instagram. And that was just because I didn't want anyone at the University of Florida to find me and be like, we're kicking you out of school. Even though I wasn't posting anything bad, everyone talked about, hey, I didn't get accepted to this program because they found my Facebook. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to be connected to that. So anyway, I moved to Texas. There was like, there was a few ropings that I would go to and my friends would enter me and I would show up later and give them their money, but they would enter me as Mud Lowery because that's what they knew me from social media. And so that was always funny. So then they would, I'd be at like dinner with somebody and like, oh, you're Mud Lowery. And I would be too shy to correct them. So I just went along with it. And it just stuck for a while. And then someone from Florida would come and visit and call me Shannon, and people from Texas would be like, "Why did that person just call you Shannon?" And like, I'm sorry for like last year, I didn't have the heart to tell you that my name is actually Shannon. But then when I started making jewelry, no one was ever like, "Oh, I own this piece by Mud Lowery." They would just be like, if someone was wearing a piece of jewelry, someone may say, "Hey, where'd you get that ring from?" And like, I got it from Mud Lowery. But then as I sold more jewelry, people would be like, "This is a Mud Lowery piece." So then I was like, "Oh, well, y'all have picked my business name for me." So then it just stuck.
And here we are.
Here we are, and all because of social anxiety.
So you started your business in 2015, I think is what you had said, but you said that your business didn't necessarily really like take off until Miranda Lambert wore a piece of yours in 2021. So what were those early days of your business like in that first 6 years pre ML?
Yeah, I would say like it definitely took off for sure after Miranda Lambert wore jewelry. It gives you that kind of like notoriety of more magazines wanting to reach out and more mainstream editors finding out about you. And that's awesome. I think at the beginning, though, from like 2015 to COVID, I was still doing really well in terms of like being able to support my family just from like a handful of really good customers that were so freaking loyal. Even through like shipping late or pre-order issues, they just stayed by my side. They didn't and say, "Oh, I'll never buy from him again." But those first few years was just those loyal customers that had probably a big friend group or people valued their word of mouth and was like, "You should check out this Mud Lowery guy." Because then let's say Jesse, you were one of them. They would message me and be like, "Hey, I'm friends with Jesse. I know she buys a bunch of your jewelry. Would you be interested in like letting me place a custom order?" And so that was like the majority of my business from like 2015 to like 2020. And it was just, I think this 5 years was just getting my name out there and thinking that this is as far as it'll go. I never thought about like doing collaborations with 4 Sixes or making jewelry for Carrie Underwood and Miranda Lambert. I didn't even think about that really. But then either right before COVID or during COVID, I made some jewelry for my friend or who I'm friends with now, Blanco Brown. He wrote the song, The Get Up, and it was like viral. And I think what he like meeting him and becoming friends with him taught me how to like talk to people in the industry. And so I think that kind of gave me the courage to work with Tiffany Gifford, who is Miranda Lambert stylist and all the other artists that she's worked with. So I think he got me ready for like that part. But up until then, it was just like, I don't know, it was just part of a way that we like pay our bills.
I love that. Let's go back to that first Miranda Lambert piece. Did you reach out to Tiffany and say, "Hey, I want to build something"? Did Tiffany find you? Was it Miranda herself who found you? Like, how basically did you get discovered? Because it was not the story of like a model getting discovered when they were walking in the mall or like Pamela Anderson at a baseball game. So,
Before we did the awards with Miranda, I think it was the first year of Cowgirl 30 Under 30, Tiffany styled Maddie and Tay for the cover. And I'm sure at some point I reached out to her and said, "Hey, I make all this jewelry. Please let me know if you ever need jewelry." The first time we worked together would have been that Maddie and takeover. And then I'm sure in the meantime, I just was like, "Do you need anything? Do you need anything? Do you need anything?" And
right.
then at some point, I think Tiffany probably was like, "We have the Marfa tapes coming out and she's performing." I think that was one of the first award shows back after COVID. So even in my mind, I was like, I couldn't believe that we were going to have an award show again because who knew what the industry, and I've always been obsessed with country music too. So that's kind of like part of it. But I was just excited that there was even going to be an award show and then to be invited to send jewelry. And I didn't know if anyone would wear it, but to be invited to send jewelry, I was like, oh, this is the biggest dream come true. And then it was like on a loan type thing. So it wasn't stuff that they ordered or anything like that. It was like, we know it's going to be like Western, whatever jewelry you have, send it in pretty much. And so I had like new pieces. I had pieces from friends and family in Fort Worth that had bought jewelry from me. Anyone that I could get to like within an hour of driving that had bought jewelry from me for.
"Hey, I need to borrow this for the day."
Yeah. I'll babysit your kids for like a week. We'll take y'all to dinner. We'll give you free jewelry, whatever we can do. And we just got all the jewelry we possibly could gather and make and whatever and sent it out. But at the time, I didn't really know Tiffany that well. So I didn't know like how it all worked. But we were ready that night when the awards came on. And I remember the announcer was like Miranda Lambert and Chris Stapleton or something like that. And I was like, oh. And I didn't know that she was going to sing more than once. But so when we saw her singing background for Chris Stapleton, she did have my buckle on. And that was amazing. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. But that was like the start of the show. And I was like, okay, well, we'll just watch the rest of the show. But how cool that she wore my buckle. Well, then like, a few moments later, they were like, after the break, Miranda Lambert. And I was like, oh gosh, she has another chance of wearing my jewelry. I wonder if it'll be then. And then sure enough, she was singing In His Arms off of the Marfa tapes. And she had on a squash blossom and all these cuffs and rings and earrings. And so even talking about it right now, I have like, my voice is kind of like shaking a little bit because I still remember the feeling of it, like the camera coming in closer and closer and being like, that looks like, that's turquoise. That's turquoise. And then just, oh my God, that's like,
Holy
that's like,
SHIT!
yeah, yeah. And it was like too much to take it all in. So like every other second, you're like noticing something new that she had on. And even if the business didn't like benefit from it, just the feeling of all that was enough. I didn't know what was going to happen after. So just that opportunity alone was insane. Thinking about it now, I was like, me, Lauren, and Major were all staying up late to watch it. And we all were all screaming like we were watching the Super Bowl.
But really, like that was your Super Bowl. And now, I mean, literally, there is not an award show where some country sensation is not decked out in Mud Lowery. So I know that people are probably curious to know when it comes to working with somebody of that celebrity caliber, tell us more about that process where you are at least now. So does their stylist come to you with like a concept? Do they typically give you like the ground level there and then you have full creative control? Are there pieces that like they have it fully developed and then they just come to you for the actual creation? Because at this point, I mean, I don't necessarily know a celebrity out there on the country music scene that has not worn your jewelry.
I think it just depends on the stylist. Like they all work differently. Some of them have like they have an idea already off the bat, and they may even already have a drawing, and that's great too. And then sometimes the stylist may say, "Hey, this is what she's wearing," and it may be a stylist you worked with a million times, so they already know that they're reaching out to you because they know what kind of jewelry you make, so they're kind of open to whatever you make. And in that case, it's just like us going back in a couple of text messages with stones and being like, what do you think of this at this length with, silver, gold, gemstones or no gemstones? And it's kind of giving a good idea of what it'll be. And then as I'm putting it together, I may send like follow up pictures and see if there's any last minute changes. And sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. But it's always last minute too, by the way. So it may be like awards is on Monday. It seems like everything has to be there at the weirdest time too. So it's like, okay, if I ship on Thursday, could it get there by Monday? Or if I ship overnight on Friday, can it get anyway? And so you're going back and forth like text messages or emails with like what you're building. Sometimes it is very involved, or sometimes it may be you send the last like image that you drew up and they're like, yeah, I like that. Put it together and ship it and we'll use it. And then sometimes it may be very detailed where it's like, oh, I don't like that one specific turquoise stone you pulled. Can you change that out? And then other times it's not even like, we don't know if we'll use your jewelry, but if you have anything and you're interested in sending it in, feel free to. But one thing I love about Tiffany is like, she has been so loyal to me and she doesn't have to be, obviously. There's times where my jewelry is not a good fit and that's totally fine too. But if there's a time where she thinks that my jewelry would be a good fit, I feel like she always reaches out. And it's always so much fun because it's a fun creative process because I may have an idea and then she has a reason why that won't work. And it's like pushes you to think of something else.
Or just a consideration that you haven't thought of as far as like you're looking at it from the design perspective of how we can, put this together, bring all of this to life. And then she's looking at it from the perspective of how is it going to be photographed? And like,
Yeah.
is this shiny thing actually going to reflect and not look good or like cast some ugly pink shadow on someone's face if you're going to use this big pink stone? Like there's a lot of things like that that probably stretch you because you're looking at it from your perspective. She's looking at it from her perspective, which I think is probably just a great reminder of life of it's one issue, one topic, one thing that we're talking about, but the importance of being open to different perspectives and knowing that they all do have their value and importance.
Yeah. For me, it's the funnest thing ever to work with like Tiffany on a piece. But it's so funny. It's like the biggest thing in my life at that time to make this piece, get it to where it needs to be on time. And whether it's a celebrity or not, if it's like a custom order for Christmas or whatever, it's like the biggest thing in my life to get this big, huge order out. But if you think about it in the scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal to them. It's just another part of this huge, big outfit they're trying to put together. So then I'll be like, oh, how are they doing this on top of the clothes and the boots and the hair and makeup? Anyway, it just puts everything into perspective. And then it makes me think like, your jewelry's not that cool.
No, but it totally is. Like without the jewelry, I mean, there is not a single woman in the world who is going to just walk out on the red carpet or whatever it is that they're doing without jewelry, even if she's wearing Versace or whatever design house has outfitted her to the nines. There is always jewelry. So jewelry is always important. Everybody
Yeah.
knows this. One thing about your jewelry, though, it is incredibly unique. I personally think that that is the point of creating things. That's not necessarily always the case, though, because I think a lot of people who are artisans worry that if they make like the off the wall stuff that they personally really love, that people aren't going to buy it. So they stay a little bit more safe because they want to make money at their craft and they know that the safe stuff is probably what's going to sell faster. But if you just continue to play it safe, then you also don't get to flex those creative muscles and design that really cool stuff, which again, that's the kind of stuff that you're known for. So how have you kind of combated that relationship between that playing it safe mindset versus really wanting to work that creative muscle in your career?
The way I've done it, and like and maybe this wasn't the right move, but I think especially people that don't wear turquoise jewelry, but they're like on the verge because they have a friend group that wears turquoise jewelry and they're trying to get into it, but they're not really sure. I think just like putting our models or Lauren in outfits that could sway kind of Western, but also could be like everyday. And then putting my jewelry with it, people can get an idea of like maybe what it would look like on them with their clothes. So that's what I tried to do. Cause like I know we used to do photo shoots with models and we would get clothes from like brands or like Rent the Runway, and it would never be like a Western brand. But I think that really helped us get customers to see that, hey, I may not wear turquoise jewelry, but this design I like, and I think I can pair it with like my David Yurmans and my Tiffany and Co bracelet. And so I think that's helped out a lot. I know like now that we have two kids, kind of like have not had as much time to do photo shoots, but we used to do a ton of photo shoots. And I think that really did help. He pushed, so kind of weird this on.
Well, it also helps when your wife is just like naturally
Yeah.
stunning and a
I
model.
do have
Like
access,
you have access to a model at all times.
It's so funny because like a lot of the clothes she doesn't pick out. People will be like, we went to a concert one time and I had like we have like our own separate clothes for Mud Lowery that we use for photo shoots and stuff. And Lauren wore one of the Mud Lowery like dresses to go to this concert. And this lady comes up to her and goes, "Oh, I love your dress. Where is it from?" And Lauren was like, "Oh, I actually don't know." She's like, let me ask my husband. It's his dress. I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me right now? Why did you do that? You already know that I'm already nervous about talking to people, and this is how I have to talk to them, is tell them what brand my dress is." And I almost feel like she did know what she
Oh,
was
that
doing
is
because she
hilarious.
laughed about it. She was like, "Ha." But it's so funny. We've had so many situations like that too, where it's like, we'll call stuff mine, and it's like, sounds like that I have like a closet full of dresses that I've been wearing. I actually had, well, and it's funny too, because my name's Shannon. So then it's like, on paper, yeah, those are Shannon's dresses if you think about it, because Shannon's a girl's name. I have the funniest stories, like, and well, I think it's funny, but so a few years ago, we went to the CMT Awards, and while we were in Nashville, we did a photo shoot with some friends, and so I brought just a ton of dresses for them to wear. And then while I was there, one of the girls that modeled, she is a hairstylist, and so she's like, "You should buy some of this and bring it back to Lauren." So I bought like a hair straightener and like the stuff that was definitely for girls' hair. And so whenever I got back to Texas, I was so tired. I was ready to get home. And I had all those girls' dresses and all the girls' stuff piled up in my suitcase. I get home and I go to my truck to get it out of the back of my truck. And I was like, oh my God, where's my suitcase? And I know I put it in my truck, but then I go to the back of the truck and my tailgate's down. I'm like, oh my God, my suitcase fell out of the truck somewhere. So as I'm like thinking like, all right, how do I backtrack? Because I'm going to be on the other side of the highway. Like, how am I going to see where the suitcase is? Anyway, I'm trying to think like logistically how I'm going to find my suitcase. I'm getting a call from the airport and they're like, hello. And I'm like, they go, we have a suitcase here. and we're trying to figure out whose it is. And then I go, "Can you open it and tell me what's in it?" And they're like, "It's just a bunch of dresses and hair products and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, and they're, I was like, "Yeah, those are mine." And he's like, okay, is it for your wife?" And I was like, "No." I was like, and then in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, this is," he doesn't get it. He doesn't know. And I was like, he goes, "It says here that it's for Shannon Lowry." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Is that your wife?" Cause he's already assuming it's a girl's name. And I was like, "No, I'm Shannon Lowry." And you could tell that he was like, "This is the weirdest call I've ever had made." So then whenever I showed up, I was like, "I'm sorry, I own a jewelry business and like I had all these clothes for a photo shoot. They're not actually like mine personally." And he's like, "Yeah, that's okay. No worries. You don't have to explain it to me." He's like, "Okay, Miss Shannon." Gosh.
He may or may not have believed you. Okay. I want to make sure that we have enough time for our rapid fire round. So, what is it that you hope people remember most about you?
Maybe not as much about people, but now that I'm 36, I feel like this is the age where you start feeling guilt of like not spending enough time with your kids. And I hope that Major and Bayou think that I cared enough about like what they wanted to do when they were little kids. I know that's probably not Mud Lowery related, but I don't really care as much about like the jewelry part as much as I do about making sure that they feel like I was a good dad.
That is about business because if you cannot fulfill yourself as a human and as a person, and if you don't have a solid foundation and you don't have a strong moral compass or integrity in you as a human, you're not going to have those in any other thing that you do in life. So it absolutely is a personal reflection, which is then also a business reflection. And who doesn't want to go buy things, especially jewelry, from a man who says, "I want to be known by my children as being the best possible father." Like, there it is.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's more so like in terms of like this time I can spend on making jewelry when you get maybe offered an opportunity to do a collaboration or asked to do something that would take up a lot of time on like a special weekend. That idea of like, I care more about like what my kids are going to think weighs in on the decisions I make on the jewelry side because it does take up a lot of time. But anyway, I agree with what you said. I appreciate that.
What is a non-negotiable in your life?
Don't think this was always my non-negotiable, but after having Bayou and just getting older, making sure that whatever decisions we're making for the business actually benefit our family and that it's not hurting our family in any way or becoming like this thing that is controlling my life.
If you were a professional athlete, what would your walk-up song be?
The Get Up by Blanco Brown.
Duh. I should have known that question before I even asked it. Okay, what is the smartest thing someone's ever told you?
Ooh. I don't, I don't think people really try to tell me smart stuff. They're like, I don't think this is gonna go over his head. I think like again, this could be business or personal, but like our whole entire life, we always made fun of my dad as when we were kids. But as we're growing up, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But he always said like two things. One to be that sin will take you further than you want to go, and you will be gone for longer than you want to be gone for. And that could just be like if you make a dishonest decision or if you're sneaky about something, it always come back to bite you. And then also you'll be dealing with that decision for much longer than you expect. And then another one is that to be slow to speak and quick to listen. And so I think you could do that in terms of like your marriage or being a father, but then also your customers' needs. And it could be situations like in terms of what products they're wanting. Are you listening to your customers?
Okay, last question of the day. Favorite things. Do you have a favorite podcast, program, a book, a product, maybe like a jewelry cleaning hack? Like you've got something that's changed your life that you just think more people should know about.
Yeah, I'm not just saying this, Jesse, because I'm on your podcast right now, but I always listen to your show. And there are other shows that I used to listen to all the time, like How I Built This by Guy Raz. I loved his show, but we've been getting copied a lot on our jewelry designs, like very purposely copied. And so we got an attorney here, and it hasn't been like the best experience. But when you had Andrea on your podcast, I immediately reached out to her and set up a call. And it's been giving me like so much excitement because silversmiths don't have like a huge understanding of how to protect their designs. And she is a wealth of knowledge. And so I think that once I finish like these steps of things that she's asked me to do, which my other attorney never asked me to do. I think that is going to really help me out a lot. And so right now I'm just obsessed with anything legal around copyright and protecting a small jewelry business, because you may have a friend that's an artist or a songwriter. The way copyright works for them is so much different, and you really can't take advice from them. But Andrea, oh my God. When you had the episode, I cannot wait for y'all to shut up so I can call her. Actually, that's not true. I wish her podcast was longer because she said so much stuff where I was like, I wonder if they're going to touch this topic. Oh, I wonder if. But so anyway, your podcast, I've listened to every episode you've released, and I always feel like I learned something on everyone.
Oh my gosh, I might actually cry. That just means so much.
I'm not just saying that either. I told Lauren, like in the middle of it, I was like, I cannot believe that we're going through this right now with the jewelry, and Jessie has this lady on her podcast. And I didn't know like how big of a person Andrea was, like if she had a team that responded to messages, if she would even open her Instagram messages. But she responded the next day, and I felt like a celebrity had just opened my message. It's like, this is crazy.
She really is such a wealth of information. So yeah, if you guys are listening to this and did not get a chance to listen to that episode, I think that was January 6th. If you go back to the beginning of 2026, it is with Andrea Sager. She has a business called The Legal Entrepreneur, and she is one of the top 25 trademark and copyright attorneys in the United States. She has a background in retail, which is incredibly important just because I feel like that is where a lot of trademark and copyright issues happen, but especially for the people of this industry on the Western industry side of things, we see it a lot when it comes to retail, apparel, lifestyle type products. So if you are somebody in that world, I highly encourage you guys to go listen to that episode. Shannon, this has been so great. Thank you so much. Obviously, people can go find you at mudlowery.com, at Mud Lowery over on Instagram, anywhere else that they can connect with you, buy your stuff.
Anywhere that I'm on, I guess Mud Lowery on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and then mudlowery.com. I really appreciate it. When you guys sent me the email to be on the podcast, I was like, oh, this is so much fun. I'm so excited.
Well, I am so thankful to have you. We are going to be back next week with a brand new episode of the show. So definitely come back then. Go follow Mud. Go see what's available in store. Buy some jewelry. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Jessie.
If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.